Today, my dear sisters and brothers, we reflect on the theme, how to deal with anger. A Japanese man at the age of 112 years, 344 days, has been crowned the world's oldest male. He's a little ahead of you, Brother Phelps. His name, not easy to call, Chitetsu Watanabe. He was born on the 5th of March, 1907. There's something about those born in March, I suppose. In a city north of Tokyo. According to the February 13, 2020 article that appeared in the Jakarta Post, the Guinness World Records officially conferred him with the title as the world's oldest man at his nursing home in the city. The previous record holder was also a Japanese, but he died last month at 112 years and 266 days. I guess when you get to a certain age, you begin to count the days as well. The article reports that Watanabe admits to having a penchant for sweets and shared, and he has a way of eating custard pudding, but it appears that it has done him no harm, this penchant for sweets. But we learn from the article that he is married with 5 children, and it is of interest that he shared his secret to longevity. And this is his secret: to never get angry and keep a smile on your face. Not to get angry and keep a smile on your face. In today's reading, again from the Sermon on the Mount, where Jesus taught his disciples, we have Jesus addressing this topic of anger. It is necessary, I believe, for us to reflect on the subject of anger and how to deal with it. As I reflect, as I think about it, it appears that anger is pervasive. That there's a lot of anger in our country, in our world, and it is having a negative impact on those of us who live in this country and in this world. I believe that Watanabe's secret to longevity, to not get angry and keep a smile on your face, might have helped one called John Hunter, the 18th century British physician, who was a pioneer in the field of surgery and served as surgeon to King George III. It is said that Hunter, who suffered from angina, discovered that his attacks were often brought on by anger. He lamented, and here's a quote, "My life is at the mercy of any scoundrel who chooses to put me in a passion." End of quote. Now these words prove prophetic, for at a meeting of the board of St. George's Hospital in London, Hunter got into a heated argument with other board members. The story says that he stormed out and dropped dead in the next room. I think that story is instructive. The story about John Hunter reminds us how closely anger and danger are related. Indeed, they are different only by one letter, D. You put a D in front of anger and you get danger. So anger can be dangerous. And in our text for today, Jesus equates anger with murder. You have heard that it was said, "You shall not murder, and whoever murders shall be liable to the judgment." But I say to you, if you are angry with your brother or sister, you shall be liable to the judgment. So that's Jesus equating two different things, murder and anger. That they are sinful, murder is sinful, and anger is sinful. And Jesus is saying that we must watch out for anger. In fact, you know, my friends, or some of you may know, that among the 7 deadly sins, anger is included as one of those deadly sins, along with pride, envy, gluttony, lust, greed, sloth. We have anger as one of the 7 deadly sins. Now, before going on, I want to point out that while the oldest man in the world says to not get angry, and while we recognize that anger is a sin, and a deadly one at that, it is hard not to be angry when we witness abuse, injustice, and wrongdoing. So here is the situation. Anger is not good because it affects relationships and hinders spiritual progress. It is a spiritual stumbling block. It is a sin. It can cause individuals to do harm to others. It can lead us to hurl cruel insults at other people. It can lead to vindictive actions and belittling of others. It can result in violence, rage, and yes, murder. So brothers and sisters, beware of anger when it is unchecked and uncontrolled. It is like a fire out of control. It can do serious damage. It is dangerous and destructive. So we have to understand that about anger, especially when unchecked and uncontrolled. Not many of us can say, like the oldest man in the world, never get angry and always keep a smile on your face. We do get angry, and we would do well to heed the words of St. Paul in the letter to the Ephesians, where he writes, "In your anger, do not sin. Do not let the sun go down while you are angry." You can read that in Ephesians 4:26. And Paul seems to be saying that there's a way to be angry without committing sin. So, earlier I mentioned that when there is injustice, when there is unfairness, when there is wrongdoing, that those who believe in justice, who believe in fairness, who believe in truth and right, and who care about others, will be angered when they see these principles being violated. We call that righteous anger or righteous indignation. But this anger can be channeled in a constructive way that advances these principles in a way that is in obedience with the will of God. So there is what I call destructive anger, and there is constructive anger. Anger that is properly channeled, that is directed at bringing about positive changes and reducing injustice and those things that harm other people. Here is something I came across. A person who is angry on the right grounds, against the right persons, in the right manner, at the right moment, and for the right length of time, deserves great praise. End of quote. So it is knowing how to manage or control or direct your anger that will be commended. Additionally, in the message from Ephesians, the author advises readers not to harbor or hold on to anger for too long. Anger that is resentful. You know, resentment means to feel again and again the sentiments that you might have felt at the beginning. So someone might have done something to you 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and you still carry that anger, that resentment. You still feel today as you felt 20 years ago when the person wronged you or hurt you or said that word about you. So Paul advises not to let the sun go down while you are still angry. Get over it as quickly as possible. And so I ask you today, my friends, how many sunsets has your anger towards another seen? How many days have begun and ended and you find yourself holding on to some anger at someone? Do not let the sun go down on your anger. Now, Jesus' teaching today can help us deal with anger. And I believe we find here in the Sermon on the Mount a good course in anger management. Anger can destroy relationships. Remember that. In fact, it can destroy lives. Anger can do harm to the person that is angry, as well as to those at whom it is directed. Here is something Mark Twain said. I quote, "Anger is an acid that can do harm to the vessel in which it is stored, or more harm to the vessel in which it is stored than anything on which it is poured." End of quote. Anger not only affects our interpersonal relationships, but it has an impact on our spiritual life and can be a barrier to worship. So Jesus teaches that when you are bringing your gifts to the altar, when you come to church and you're making your offering, or when you're presenting your prayers, and you remember that a brother or sister has something against you, that you should go and do something about it. The other thing I would say in terms of today's teaching on anger is that it must be rejected. Anger must be rejected. That anger that is destructive to the individual that carries it and to those at whom it is directed must be rejected. Now, you heard Brother Tom a little earlier speak about the two presidents whose birthday we celebrate this month. The 12th was Lincoln, the 22nd is Washington. And I am told that Lincoln had a practice, a way of rejecting anger. Doris Kearns once explained on NPR that whenever Abraham Lincoln felt the urge to tell someone off, he would compose what he called a hot letter. He'd pile all of his anger into a note, put it aside until his emotions cool down, and then write, never sent, never signed, which meant that General George G. Meade, for one, would never have heard from his commander-in-chief that Lincoln blamed him for letting Robert E. Lee escape after Gettysburg. Now, Lincoln was hardly unique among public figures who need to think twice about their choice of words. The unsent angry letter has a venerable tradition. Its purpose is twofold. It serves as a type of emotional catharsis, a way to let it all out without the repercussions of true engagement. And it acts as a strategic catharsis, an exercise in saying what you really think without really saying it to the person. I find this to be a wonderful practice. When you are angry and you feel like telling someone off, be careful what you do. Think about it. Write a hot letter. But you don't have to send the letter. In fact, I'm told that Lincoln would then write a more diplomatic letter after he got it off his chest. I suppose he didn't live in the days of Twitter. And so he was able to think and consider more carefully what he put out there. Anger should be rejected. And finally, my friends, anger can be managed through efforts at reconciliation. When you're angry at someone, you have a choice between revenge and reconciliation. You know, revenge is the action of inflicting hurt or harm on someone for an injury or wrong suffered at their hands. Jesus teaches us today that if a brother or sister has something against you, that you should seek reconciliation. Do what you can to restore the relationship, to overcome the anger, to rise above it, and move on from the wrongs and the hurt of the past. And I want you to note something as we conclude. The text says that we must go and seek reconciliation. You know, sometimes we might say, well, he did something to me or she did something to me. He has something against me. And so we think that the onus is on the other person to come and make things right. But Jesus said, if you remember that a brother or sister has something against you, has a grievance against you, you must go to that person and make it up with that person. I know these things are not easy, my friends. It's easier said than done. But it is the only way to break down the dividing wall of hostility. And if there's going to be peace on earth, as we will sing soon, let that peace begin with me. For the word tells us, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. So I pray that we will go and make peace today with those with whom we need to be at peace. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.